with another reading, and today I would like to start just by talking about the energies. We are at the end of last quarter moon, the very end, entering the new moon. The energies that are being showing to me, the energies that I've been able to pick up from what the new moon is bringing, is communication. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper. We are going to notice, and perhaps you're already noticing, some styles of communication that you hold. Perhaps you're noticing your tone. Perhaps you're noticing tones on others. Perhaps you're noticing the kind of words that you use, or perhaps you're noticing that you are choosing different words to use according to how your healing journey is expanding. You are also expanding how you communicate, how you express. But what's also coming up is that you are perhaps noticing the way you were communicated from your upbringing, your childhood, your journey, and how you acquire that type of communication from simply being in the presence, living in your family household. And you are noticing these subtle information that's coming up to you. Perhaps you are realizing but not making a good point of it, but then eventually something happens that kind of brings that information back to you. So I would highly encourage in this new moon to just journal a little bit and write down if you are feeling that communication is coming to you as a way of awareness, to just kind of like write down, even if you just put bullet points, things that you notice, to help you go a little bit deeper as we go into the moon phases, because now we're starting a new moon cycle. And as we start this new moon cycle, through the Patreon, we will be picking up a topic, and the topic is communication. And we'll go through the moon phases, utilizing the energies of the moon phases and the cards to describe the energies of the moon phases, so that we can guide our healing through the process of healing, so that we are healing fully, right? We're not just touching and getting re-triggered or reliving stuff without finalizing, without resolving, without evolving from it. So if you want to join us, it's called the Wisdom Activator 369 Lunar Energy. If you sign up, you will have access to all the calls. We do weekly calls. And of course, we do touch on all the energies of the moon. We go through healing ourselves, and a chat community that's very supportive. So perhaps it is a time for us to take care of our needs at the moment. Our needs of these awarenesses are coming up for us, okay? And if they're coming up for us, there is a reason why. There is a need to be looked at. There's a need to be explored, and there is a need to be resolved and expanded. Perhaps you have noticed your mind wandering, thinking quite a lot lately. We just came out of a big cycle of moon, a really big cycle. It has brought a lot of clarity about many aspects of yourself. And you have a choice. You have a choice of which aspects you want to work on. And it's all about your own needs, all about your own way of understanding your inner essence, who you are, who you want to be, who you are becoming. So it's very important to take a look. We're coming out of winter soon, and this is where we retrieve. This is where we go back within, and this is where we perhaps notice our needs. And as we are noticing our needs, there's a moment of flourishing, but there's also a moment of introspection. And this introspection is what's going to bring us, you, the collective, interesting forms of understanding how to shift, how to navigate, how to move through our own expansion, our own healing. Perhaps it's coming through the absence of something or the absence of ourselves. Perhaps someone has become absent in your relationships, or perhaps you have become absent in other relationships. Perhaps it's coming from a past life activation, okay, that you're not aware, through dreams, through experiences, to situations that are replicating a past life experience. And what I have understood from something that can be activated from either an absence or an action, so we're talking about, the Hermit and the Fool cards. When we go through healing, we can go through healing through different paths. We can take the path of introspection, going within, rest, or we can take the path of fully going into action, acting, putting out there. And either way is through your intuitive ways of integrating your own healing. But something came up this week for me that I want to share, which kind of links to these two pathways. What happened was, sometimes we make a decision and it feels right, it feels in your heart. We're always talking about here about going in your heart before making a decision, going in your heart to find out what's the best outcome for the highest good of you and all. And then you go about, make that decision. And then something happens, or that it isn't expected, or something happens that doesn't feel like it was part of that decision, because you did it from your heart, you did it from that space of divine love within, and you saw the beauty of it, and at the time you did make the decision. But then later on in that timeline, so you enter that timeline as you made the decision, and then later on in that timeline, the opinions of others, the situation changed, perhaps maybe not as positive as you thought it would. And then that makes you kind of retrieve, and you go back into that decision, and you go into perhaps inner criticism, yeah? And if you go into that space, what you're doing is you are changing the timelines, because you stepped into a timeline at that moment, you move forward into that timeline, but then back then you go back into your decision, and you are then rejudging. You perhaps are then reanalyzing and thinking perhaps that decision wasn't the best decision. And then at that point, we are changing the timelines. We're changing our reality from that point of reassessing a decision. And as we're coming from the last 2 full moon cycles, all about self-love, all about stepping in your own sacred, in your own beauty, in your own temple, being able to see the beauty in your decision, in your heart, in your communication with your heart, with gratitude, and trusting that your decision was made from a place of your heart, regardless of what the outcome looks like. Because sometimes you could be making a decision through the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit could be guiding you to make that decision, especially when it's coming from a spur of the moment, especially when it's coming from a place that you feel so right to do it, but at the same time you feel perhaps it's not something you would have done yourself. There was no thought, you just did it. And it felt right. But then eventually, the divine is working through you, but then eventually the decision of others, the opinion of others is changing that timeline. And you have a choice then to stick to the timeline where you acted through the spirit acted through you, or you change the timeline where you are then activating all the timelines and realities that perhaps comes away from that moment where spirit was working through you. And the message here is to be, really back into yourself, back into, that moment that you felt heaven was sent to you, heaven was sent for you, in that moment of trust, inner trust, and hold that timeline. Hold that timeline that came through you from spirit, regardless what it looks like later on and how other people are judging and seeing the situation. Hold that timeline and stay in that reality yourself, because you are being taught, you are mastering, your guides are teaching you, are giving you this experience for you to stand firm in your moment of decision made through your heart. Because you are loved. You are very loved. You are very loved, and you are in that journey. You are in that journey right now. And you know this. And perhaps there is a little fear that comes up, right? Some residue of fears that still comes up when you realize that your decision, even though it's made from the heart, is somewhat changing. Is somewhat changing because of the judgment of others. This is the moonlight goddess. Repressed emotions, healing, and reflection. And perhaps you go into reflection, and it's okay to go into reflection, but perhaps you go into reflection and then changing how he felt that decision in the beginning of that timeline. But the reflection is perhaps for you to reinforce that your decision was made from the heart, it was guided, and it was correct for you, for your truth, for the truth of that specific moment. It was right for that moment, it was guided for that moment. And how can you hold that line even through self-reflection, not self-judgment, but even through self-reflection? How can you hold that line, that timeline, so that you are stepping into the reality that you are created, which is the sacred earth? Yeah, you're working with Gaia, you're working with Holy Spirit, you're working with your guides, and you're working with your soul. You're working with all your past life experiences, all your wisdom, all your keys. And right now, you are the mystic of divine love. Love is divine, and I am nothing except love. And when you accept that, you will accept that divine love in any of your decisions, any of your truth moments. What you don't want happening is going back in your moments of decisions that was made from love, that was made from the heart, and changing that and having second thoughts about it. Yeah? Because this is how you create your sacred space. This is how you create, look at this lady inside the pyramid. This is how you create your sacred space. This is how you create your reality. You've got to hold the line. You've got to hold the timeline that you stepped in the past, all the way through until the situation is evolved, resolved, and stay with the essence and the energy that you had when you made that decision. And of course, as the situation evolves, energy will flow. You know, you work with the flow, but you work with the flow of what's evolving for you, but not to change how you're made that decision, because you know you made from the heart. If you didn't make from the heart and you're unsure, it's a whole different story. You can work with that timeline as well. But if you are really sure, yeah, you want to hold that timeline. And some timelines are worth holding for. You are, see, Rhonda Knight, achievement, potential, emotional balance, and an open heart. You are well on the way to achieving your heart's desire, so trust and keep an open heart and mind. Life is always full of potential, and you're always on the right track. Do not be discouraged by the recent setbacks you may have experienced. Keep quietly focused on all that which you wish to create and achieve. Enjoy the journey, keep a loving attitude. Have patience and faith, and the universe will help you manifest your dreams. And stay in your own love. You are the beloved. Stay in your own heart love, in your own self-love. And keep going. Keep going. Salome's destiny. Move on. Keep going. You keep facing that mountain. You keep climbing that mountain. You keep that timeline. You're holding that timeline and you keep moving. And you'll be ups and downs, but you created a timeline. And you are on that timeline. And if you know that you created that timeline from love, you know that you are in the correct timeline. Moonflower. The moon's coming. The new moon's coming. We are open now. We are being open to so many awarenesses that perhaps of something that happened in your first quarter moon of February. It's from there that the new moon is going to come and show us more layers of that which we discovered and integrated through the last quarter moon. And there'll be sub layers of that for us to see now in the new moon. And I have a feeling it'll be all about communication. Communication is something that is being ticking in many aspects of collectives. And if you want to focus on one aspect of communication, I would highly recommend you join us. The Patreon lunar energy healing, and we will be following the energies to assist our own healing. Archangel Gabriel is here with us, asking us to express our creativity. We are surrounded by prosperity. Your attention is being drawn to the infinite nature of reality. That which exists outside the known is beyond measure. And that, like I said, when you step in a timeline, you got to be comfortable with the unknown. You have to, eliminate all expectations and go with the flow, but go with the flow that was created from that moment that you made that decision from your heart. And if you know for sure that the decision was not made from your heart, any introspection, any reflection will release repressed emotions, will release emotions for you to see and heal from it. Or you could be on a path that you are reinforcing, right? You are becoming a healer. You are reinforcing your intentions, you're reinforcing your decision making from the heart, and you are sustaining it through the path, through the timelines. You are holding the timelines to allow you to create your reality. This is manifestation. We need intention and we need our heart. You're holding the wheel of fortune, yeah? You have all in your hand. It's all up to you. It's all up to you. Which timeline do you want to hold? How do you sense the energy of that timeline? And this is something we talk on and discuss and practice. We did we in the Patreon we detect these energies, and then we try to work with it to find it and understand how these energies are playing out in our field. So then we can capture these energies again and say, I want to stay in this timeline. And this is how you grow in your own spiritual path. The turquoise angel. Your true beliefs are becoming clearer to you, which prompts you to make necessary life changes. And a life change can be holding a timeline or switching timeline. Perhaps you have entered a timeline from fear, and as you go back and you reassess and you go into reflection and introspection, you realize that you could have done maybe that decision from love, and then you can make that change immediately and go back and enter a different timeline that then creates your reality that is not from fear. But what if you enter your timeline from love, from your own divine love, and you made that decision, but later on the situation is asking you to change, the situation is showing you things that perhaps you didn't see before, and now you're doubting, okay? Now you're doubting, now you are struggling. Again, it's going to bring repressed emotions for you to see, but can you hold a timeline of which you made the decision from, which was from love, and hold that timeline to keep the reality of what you saw right at the beginning of that timeline. And this is, I think, what's being asked here for us to see, is that we make decisions. We do make decisions. We are here in the world to make decisions. We're here to create a reality. And as we create this reality, we have a choice, but discerning and knowing that the choices were made from love and holding that timeline is what allows us to create a reality. Give us this day our daily cake. And I love this because just reading it sounds fun, yeah? And once you can push that fear barrier, once you can push that fear barrier from those decisions that we make and being able to hold the timeline that you want, yeah, we can then have fun with it. We can have fun with it. We can reflect back and see, I really did hold that timeline that I believed in. Or I really did change my reality by changing my timeline because I realize I've done it from fear. So either way, you have a choice. Either way, it's up to you. You have that power. You have that discernment. You have that understanding. You have that knowingness. And you know you do. And you gotta have fun with it. The diving beetle. Beetles came a lot for me this week. Slow movement, creative force, and water element. We are still very strongly in the water element. The new moon coming up is in Pisces. And we are going to still continue to look into our emotions. But mainly, I think we are going to see and feel how our energy is playing out with the emotions that are surfacing. In the Patreon community, we go a little bit deeper. We just don't look at the emotions or the thought processes or the limiting beliefs in itself, but we also look how you sense those energies of those emotions, thought processes, and limiting beliefs so that you can make changes through energy. There's a lot that can be said about therapies, and they're amazing. But there's also a lot that you can do with working with the energy of your own energy field to allow you to clear traumas, to clear and create expansive new ways of thinking that allows you to open yourself to the realities and the possibilities of realities that's out there. because you hold the wheel at all times. We just need to hold that timeline of that wheel. We need to hold that timeline of that wheel. And even if you hold the timeline that you created from fear and you hold it to the end, you will also heal that fear. So there's no wrong or right timelines. But what I'm trying to express here, the lessons that have come through this week and how the cards are speaking to me, which then again I will base my experience on these, how the messages are coming. We hold a decision-making space of energy in moment in time. We go and that moment in time, there is an energy, there is a decision-making. And you can hold the energy all the way through your timelines. Whichever decision you made, if it comes from the heart, it's discerning and knowing and understanding and believing in yourself that you made from the heart, that the Holy Spirit has worked through you. There's so many times in my life, and I think perhaps some people might have similar, people might have similar ways, but sometimes the Spirit works through me that puts me in the right place in the right moment to help people. And for me to make those decisions to be in those places, very atypical of me. It won't be a decision that I usually make. It won't be a decision that usually comes through me through a thought. It's literally just a surge of orientated action that just happens, and it takes me sometimes a while to realize I actually done it. It's almost like a gap in my mind where I realize, how did I get here? Like when you do automatic driving and you get home and you don't remember how you got home. It's that type of feeling, that type of sensation through the energies. And then I find myself in spaces where I'm there somewhat helping people, and I think, and I've learned to accept those moments as guided, as through the Holy Spirit, my soul communicating through the Holy Spirit and guiding me to do things. And lately, I've also noticed that some of the situations I got myself into didn't have a necessarily positive outcome to all, but the situation came to show me and others, as as a collective, me and others, all the possibilities that they had a choice to be able to see to help themselves grow. And it wasn't necessarily negative. And as you know, when we are healing, sometimes we see things about ourselves that we don't necessarily feel happy about. But once we see it without judgment, once we see it without self-blame, self-shame, and we can look into it without the fear of even inner judgment, we can then work through it and release it and expand it into different versions of ourselves that perhaps we once were. And when you sit there and you can see the dynamic of a collective, of a group, and how others play all different roles, and others will be there to show you things, right? Others will be there to show you things, and you'll be there to show them things through the guidance of the Holy Spirit. And when we see these things, this is when we evolve. So the opportunities are there in every interaction. But what this reading is about trusting that you are working with the sacred earth, that you are working with the divine, that you are part of this collective that is working together for the highest good of all, that you are a healer. Okay, you are a healer. You see the beauty in everything. You are protected, you are guided. And as you step into this path, this spiritual path, you start to understand the dynamics that the universe brings for you to see. You start to see the dynamics between group of people and how it plays out, and how only the divine can write how these stories plays out. There's nothing that we can write, there's nothing we can create. Well, I don't mean create in that sense, but manipulate, that's what I meant. Of course you can, but if you are working through your heart and being guided, there's nothing you can manipulate. It's just about following the flow and seeing it unravel right in front of you. And like I said, you are surrounded by prosperity, and prosperity doesn't have to look beautiful all the time. Okay, sometimes prosperity comes from seeing something about ourselves that needs working, and that brings prosperity. Once you see it, once you work through it, it opens you up to prosperity. And that's the idea, is that even if the situation you got yourself into doesn't necessarily finish doesn't look like a great outcome, you'll be surprised if you wait and if you observe and if you stay in your trust and holding that timeline that you stepped in with the Holy Spirit in the beginning, that you will see that it will resolve itself. It will evolve into the opportunities that everyone in that situation has to balance themselves out. Okay, it's all about balance, the universe, reciprocity, duality, and balance. And could you be the person that ignited that chain of reactions in a group, or could you be the one receiving that chain of reactions from someone in a group? Okay, and it could be both. It could be both. Always both. I always look at it as both ways equally. Yeah, so always be open if you feel that you are being guided to ignite something in a group. Also remember that you are receiving something. There is a gift there for you. And we talked about a gift in the last reading, and that was my gift. My gift was, through this Holy Spirit journey that I went through, I saw that perhaps I needed to understand how to hold my timeline, to be able to create a reality that is love, that is divine, that is pure, and break through the fear barrier. I thank you so much for being here today. I hope to see you soon. And yes, that's the message. I feel like it's come to an end. Thank you very much.